Hey guys, what's up? This video is just kind of an update of all the weird way that things go in design, I guess would be the best example of what this is. Since I started this and being a miniatures guy and paint storage has always been a problem. I mean, you got to find places to put them. Storage units take up a lot of space. Paints end up everywhere. So when I got the laser cutter and started working with it, I went through a lot of different variations on ways to store paint. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through some of the different designs that I did and what works and what doesn't. So if you're looking for a paint system, you can tell the advantages and the disadvantages, as well as if you're designing your own. This way you kind of know what you're getting into. All of these designs are ones that I did on the laser cutter, but really you could do them by hand if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to put in the time, you could do them yourself. It's not that big of a deal. So we're going to start off with, and some of these were prototypes. In fact, this one that you see in front right here, that's actually out of cardboard, was one of the first prototypes that I did. But this is, and I'm going to grab some paints and just show you that it will hold the paints. This is the first one that I did, and what it was a two-tier setup. I wanted something that fit on my desk, that was cheap for me to make. I think these, oh god, cutting these out of cardboard, I think it cost me like 50 cents a piece to cut them out. Or materials, I should say, and then cut time wasn't that bad either. They actually cut pretty quick. Downside is, it is cardboard, and you get it wet, it bends, it has all the limitations of cardboard. But it did turn out kind of neat. So this one I ended up doing, this was the first idea I was going to do, where I had two trays. So I had a top level and a bottom level. The advantage, and I staggered the top level, so the top level didn't hold as many as the bottom level. So that way it made it easier to get to paints at the back. The one nice thing with it is it was even tall enough that if I wanted to, I could put, you know, those big monster craft paints. And in fact, I still do use this one occasionally with the craft paints because it has so much space in it. This one normally sits on my painting desk for terrain, and it's full of paints for those. But I've pulled all the paint off of it just so you guys can see it. So we'll get some of the paint out of the way. But it was a pretty neat design. I mean, you've got a decent amount of paint storage on top and on the bottom. As far as looks on it, I went for something a little... I was trying to be creative with it, and I wanted something that didn't look, you know, like just a slab of paint storage. So I added a few additionals. You know, there's a little kind of little support piece here at the bottom, and I'll try and bring that in so you can see. So that actually is designed so that the shelf sits on that, as opposed to just being held up there by the glue. But it's a pretty sturdy unit. I mean, it holds the paint fine. I actually ended up cutting a few of these out of wood. Normally I bring one of the wood ones over here, but they still have stuff on them, and I wasn't about to unload them all. But this was kind of one of the first starters of it. One neat thing that I did do with this one that carried through on some of them was, you notice that there are double holes. What those allowed me to do was put paints in upside down. So I made the holes big enough that I could put the paints in upside down so I could see them. But also with that smaller hole, I can get one of, so if you get like those domed topped paints, they'd fit in there also, either upside down or right side up. So that was kind of the first series. And like I said, it turned out okay. That then brought me to this. And this was kind of the basis for all the other paint trays that I did, which was, this one, I mean, was actually kind of over-engineered in that it's got recesses at the bottom, and I'll try and bring these forward. It's got recesses at the bottom to make sure the paints don't slide around, plus it has the holes. It's a pretty neat little unit. This one is one that I use a lot with my airbrush. The big thing I like about it is the fact that this one, I mean, I can turn the thing any way and not worry about stuff falling off of it. So when I got to that point, I finally said, okay, now I've got a plan that works. And for taller paints, all I had to do was just adjust the height of it. So if I made it thicker, I could put bigger stuff in it. If I made it thinner, I could put shorter stuff in it. And once again, it worked for all the others. This one, I actually made the hole slightly smaller because I was trying to fit more in, and you notice that, oops, try that again, the big GW pots don't fit in upside down, but the smaller ones do. So and that was that one. I mean, in that tray, that's kind of my workhorse tray. I mean, I've got a bunch of these floating around. Like I said, I've got one with my airbrush paints in it. I've got another one of different shades of brown for like terrain. I also have another one of these that is kind of my traveling one. So when I'm working on a project, I pull out just the paints that I need, I put them in one of these, and I go on. And it works out pretty well. That then got me into, well, I can do it that size, let's make it bigger. So this time around, same thing. I didn't put the holes in the bottom this time. I just made it bigger. And the larger one, once again, this one was only sized for paints to fit it upside or right side up, but you still got that same benefit of if you knocked it over, you didn't worry about paints falling out, which was a plus. The one downside with it is this is pretty big and took up a lot of desk space. The tray size on this one is the same size as the other. It's the same size as as the paper one from earlier. So you can see that they're both about the same size, same height, kind of thing. Took up a lot of space. So I said, well, how can I get back some of that space? So I did this thing. So now I've got a stand, and what the stand does is it puts them in at an angle. That allowed me to shorten the distance, so instead of it taking up like 12 inches front to back, it now takes up about 9. Left the trays removable though. So when I put these in here, line that up on this side, the tray actually floats on there. So I've still got both levels. There's plenty of space between them, so I can still get to paints at the back. Turned out really well. Nice thing with this one was it allowed me to go from that piece, and I'm going to tilt this up just a little and show you what came next, which was that version of it. This one is another one of the workhorse ones. This one I like. My wife actually has one on her desk for her painting stuff that she does. This one has just been a great one for me. So you sacrifice the amount of paint, but you get a better angle because this one was angled more, which worked out really well. It's like 25 paints, I think it is. So it works out really well. But what was neat was I added 2 little drawers at the bottom. So I've got 2 drawers. The advantage of having the drawers, and they're just standard wooden drawer, was that it gave me a place to put all the other stuff that goes with painting. So when I'm painting, I needed a place to put my brush cleaner. I needed a place to put some of the smaller brushes, the pipettes, all of that kind of stuff. All the little fiddly bits that go along with painting. So it gave me the way to put those into a spot. And I'll slide this one back. What was neat about it was the 2 pieces, when you put them side by side, there wasn't that big of a difference in depth. So I could actually gang large quantities of them together. I had started to even do a corner piece for it, and then said, you know what, I'm done with this design. Just leaving it at these 2 pieces is perfect. Gives me more than enough versatility. I think on her desk, and I'll try and look over, she's got like 3 of these side by side that hold her paints and all her other stuff that she has underneath it. So those designs. Then somebody asked, hey, can you do something takes up a little bit less space? I've got more vertical space than I do horizontal space. So that's where that one came from. And you guys remember this one from another video. This was one that the material that this came out of was acrylic. That I was testing out a specific type of acrylic when I did this one. And it turned out really well. Being acrylic, and I'm going to try and bring this forward there. Once again, the little tabs. The one downside with the acrylic is gluing it is kind of a pain. I mean, it is, and I think this design was a little fragile, as well as paint density on it. Paint density on it wasn't as good as I thought, because I needed to leave a fairly decent amount of space for the paints to get in and out of. So you're lifting the paint straight up and out. I needed to leave a pretty decent space so you can get your hand in there to get them out. So, finally, long way to go to get to long way to go to get to one thing. We get to that. It's the final design. I think I am done at this point on designing paint carriers. This particular one, you get 8 paints per shelf. Plus you have the top level that you can put anything you want on. The nice thing with this one though is the paints are in at an angle. So they're really easy to get out, and what that allowed me to do was to shorten the whole thing. Right now the depth on this particular one is 2 inches, but I also do I'm working on a 3-inch deep one. So if you have taller paints, it gives you a lot more space to put the paints in. Because then you don't worry about them tilting out. But this turned out really well. I said this is another, the paint shelves are all sitting at an angle. And that's kind of the end of the line for them. I went ahead because I know if your desk is anything like mine, there are going to be dips and those kind of things in it. So I actually did cut out so it'll sit flat. And it's strong enough that if you really wanted to, you could actually mount it on a wall without it falling down, which is kind of nice. So that's really it. I mean, you've now seen kind of the evolution of every paint storage units I've come up with. Got any questions or anything? Check out the links below. And let me know what you think. I mean, this is a pretty full setup of what's possible out there. I mean, there's, you know, the Spice Rack style. There is the, move some of this stuff out of the way. There was that one. You know, little one. I mean, I've really gone about as far as I can take these kind of projects. So, have a good one, guys. I'm going to go back to cutting out other stuff and getting all these paints put away. Talk to you later.